under a rock because I hadn't heard of Colleen Hoover before they came to me with this movie, but you don't really see a lot of me in the character. And I think that more than any movie I've ever done, like Lily is such a ball buster. I am rotten to the core. I probably have diapers in the car. Honestly, I have so many kids that I could just give you some of those.
Thank you.
The diapers, not the kids.
No, that's fine.
I want to feel like, how could this happen to her? Where normally when you see it on screen, you're like, oh, well, I could see how that could happen to her, so that you can follow the journey. And you're like, why? Like, why do we have to be like tied up on a train track? Like, let us, My husband calls me his knight in shining armor, which I think is so sweet, because you only hear that about like men, like men being that. But like, that's like what you want to, I want to see women on screen who are like the knight in shining.
Welcome back to my channel. Today is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, and let me tell you, Blake Lively is not having a good week. Maybe not even a good month, or honestly, it might just be a rough year for her. It all started at the end of 2024 with a bang when she tried to push this narrative that she was receiving a ton of bad press because a group of people were allegedly colluding against her in retaliation. She claimed that every media outlet publishing negative stories about her was somehow tied to this group, which she says includes her former director, Justin Baldoni, Wayfair Productions, a crisis PR team, a couple of PR agents, and another agency based in Texas. She filed what's called a CRD complaint in California, a Civil Rights Department complaint, which is essentially the first step you take before filing a lawsuit. Interestingly, though, she never actually filed a lawsuit in California. Instead, she filed one in New York, which makes you wonder why she even bothered with the CRD in California. But hey, that's just a conspiracy theory, right? In the CRD complaint, she made a bunch of accusations against these individuals and entities, alleging that they were retaliating against her and smearing her name to damage her credibility. The goal, according to her, was to make sure no one would believe her claims so they could avoid accountability for the allegations she had against them. Specifically, she claimed that on the set of It Ends With Us, there were incidents of inappropriate contact, inappropriate language, and even videos being shared. But the main focus of her complaint was this alleged retaliation campaign. She insisted that all these people were conspiring to take her down, refusing to acknowledge that there might have been an organic public backlash against her. Instead, she believed it was all a coordinated effort. Now here's where things get messy. The CRD complaint was supposed to be confidential. It's not a public document that anyone can access. But somehow the media got their hands on it, which means someone from Blake's camp must have leaked it. And once it was out there, the media had a field day because they could report on it as if it were fact, even though it was just a complaint, not a proven case. One of the people named in the complaint is Jed Wallace, who's accused of running smear campaigns on Reddit and using bots to engage in negative activity against Blake. While Jed isn't taking this lying down, he's now suing Blake Lively. Jed Wallace and his company, Street Relations Incorporated, are taking her to federal court in Texas, claiming that they were wrongfully named in the CRD complaint. The twist: Blake didn't include Jed or his company in her New York lawsuit, even though she named them in the CRD complaint. To make things even more confusing, Blake initially filed a motion in Texas to depose Jed Wallace and his company, but then she suddenly dismissed it. Why would she do that? It's strange, right? She included him in the CRD complaint but now doesn't want his deposition. Jed sees this as proof that she's trying to avoid accountability, and he's now suing her for defamation and other claims. So here's the breakdown of the lawsuit. Jed Wallace and Street Relations Incorporated versus Blake Lively. The lawsuit states that on December 20, 2024, Blake filed the CRD complaint in California, naming Jed and his company as respondents. She accused them of engaging in conduct that violated California Government Code and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The complaint alleged things like sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to investigate, and aiding and abetting harassment. But here's the kicker. Jed and his company were never actually sued in the New York lawsuit. The CRD complaint, which was leaked to the media, made it seem like they were defendants, but they weren't. Jed argues that Blake knew there were no facts to support the allegations against him or his company, and yet she still put their names out there, damaging their reputation. The lawsuit goes on to say that Blake's actions have caused them significant harm, and they're now seeking damages for negligence, false light, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with prospective economic advantage. They also point out that on January 21st, Blake filed a petition for a Rule 202 deposition in Hays County, Texas, targeting Jed but not his company. This move, they claim, was just another attempt to drag them into a legal battle without any real basis. So there you have it. Blake Lively's legal drama continues to unfold, and it's getting messier by the day. Stay tuned for more updates as this story develops. So they're arguing that she knew or should have known that her claims were false or, at the very least, acted with reckless disregard for the truth. This is a serious accusation, and if proven, it could lead to significant punitive damages against Blake Lively. The lawsuit is essentially saying that Blake's actions were not just careless but intentionally harmful, and they're seeking justice for the reputational and financial damage caused by her allegations. The plaintiffs, Jed Wallace and Street Relations Incorporated, are also claiming that Blake's actions were a deliberate attempt to silence them and chill their free speech rights. They argue that her filing of the CRD complaint and the subsequent media frenzy were calculated moves to damage their reputation and business. By naming them in the complaint and then failing to include them in the actual lawsuit, Blake created confusion and allowed the media to portray them as guilty parties without any factual basis. This, they claim, is a clear violation of their rights and an abuse of the legal system. The lawsuit further emphasizes that Texas is the appropriate jurisdiction for this case because Blake initiated the deposition process there, even though she is not a resident of the state. They argue that her actions in Texas, including the filing and subsequent dismissal of the Rule 202 petition, demonstrate her willingness to engage in legal battles in the state, making it a fair venue for the case. In terms of damages, Wallace and Street are seeking both compensatory and punitive damages. They claim that the false allegations have caused them millions of dollars in reputational harm, emotional distress, and lost business opportunities. They're asking for a declaratory judgment to clear their names and prevent further legal action from Blake, as well as punitive damages of at least $6 million to punish her for what they describe as malicious and reckless behavior. The lawsuit also highlights the irony of Blake's situation. She initially claimed to be a victim of harassment and retaliation, but now she's the one being accused of using the legal system to harass and retaliate against others. The plaintiffs argue that her actions were not only baseless but also harmful to their livelihoods and reputations. They're asking the court to hold her accountable for the damage she's caused and to send a message that such behavior will not be tolerated. In summary, this legal battle is far from over. Jed Wallace and Street Relations Incorporated are taking a strong stand against Blake Lively, accusing her of defamation, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're seeking significant damages and a declaratory judgment to clear their names. Meanwhile, Blake's dismissal of the deposition request and the allegations of actual malice raise serious questions about her legal strategy and the validity of her claims. This case is a prime example of how legal disputes can spiral out of control, with both sides accusing the other of wrongdoing. It's a messy situation, and it remains to be seen how the courts will ultimately rule. Stay tuned for more updates as this drama unfolds. This latest lawsuit against Blake Lively is definitely a bombshell, and it raises some serious questions about her legal strategy and the validity of her claims. Let's break it down further and analyze what's happening here. Jed Wallace and Street Relations Incorporated are essentially arguing that Blake Lively knowingly made false allegations against them in her CRD complaint, fully aware that they were not involved in any harassment or retaliation against her. They claim she leaked the complaint to the press with the intention of causing widespread damage to their reputation, and then conveniently excluded them from her actual lawsuit in New York. This, they argue, shows a pattern of reckless and malicious behavior on her part. The fact that Blake dismissed her request for a deposition against Jed Wallace is particularly telling. If she truly believed he was a key player in the alleged smear campaign against her, why would she back down? It suggests that she either lacks evidence to support her claims or realized she was in over her head legally. Either way, it doesn't look good for her case. What's also striking is how the CRD complaint was written. As you pointed out, it reads more like a sensationalized story than a formal legal document. The level of detail and narrative style seems designed for public consumption, which raises suspicions that Blake intended for it to be leaked. This is highly unusual for a CRD complaint, which is typically a confidential document meant for internal review by the Civil Rights Department. By crafting it in such a way, Blake may have been trying to control the narrative and sway public opinion in her favor, regardless of the facts. The lawsuit also highlights the potential consequences of Blake's actions. By naming private individuals and companies in her complaint, she's exposed them to significant reputational and financial harm. Jed Wallace and Street Relations Incorporated are now seeking at least $7 million in damages, which includes compensation for lost business, emotional distress, and punitive damages. This is a stark reminder that false allegations can have serious repercussions, especially when made by someone with as much influence as Blake Lively. The Streisand effect is definitely at play here. By drawing so much attention to her claims, Blake has inadvertently brought more scrutiny to her own actions and the people she's accused. What started as an attempt to clear her name and shift the narrative has now backfired, with more people questioning her motives and the validity of her allegations. This could have long-term consequences for her reputation and career, especially if the courts rule against her. As for whether there could be more lawsuits on the horizon, it's certainly possible. If other individuals or companies named in the CRD complaint feel they've been wrongfully accused, they may also decide to take legal action against Blake. Colleen Hoover, for example, could potentially sue if she believes her reputation has been damaged by Blake's claims. The fallout from this case could continue to grow, creating even more legal and public relations challenges for Blake. In the meantime, it's important to remember that these are just allegations at this stage, and Blake has not been found liable for any wrongdoing. However, the mounting legal pressure and public scrutiny suggest that this story is far from over. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of making unsubstantiated claims and the potential consequences of using the legal system as a weapon. What are your thoughts on this latest development? Do you think Blake Lively's actions were reckless, or do you believe she has a valid case? Could we see more lawsuits emerge from this situation? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.